It's Podquester time now, it is Podquester time.
Muna! Our robbed queen, thank you so much for being here today with me and Tommy to talk a little bit about your Sequester game.
Yes, I'm so excited, especially with you two beautiful humans. Like, let's do this. Let's do this.
So, we had questions. That's right. So let's start with the battle match. You know, you were taken out once by Spencer, and you did, kind of tell everybody kind of what you were thinking. You were somebody, Tommy and I were just talking a minute ago about people who play out front, and you were playing out front, and you let Spencer kind of know how you felt, why you were happy to go into the battle match with him. You did lose, and you were in jury, and then you came back via the battle match. Coming back from the battle match, what was your plan?
Yeah. First, to cover what you said originally. So it's interesting because, like, in the minis, like, I kind of don't play fully up front. My social game is really what I know is one of my greatest strengths, and that is what I usually have as my forefront. But then coming into this game, I realized these people really see me as the biggest threat. Therefore, there's really no point for me to hide anything because they're going to come for me regardless. And so for me, it was really interesting and fun to play up front in a way I've personally never played in the minis. And so coming back from the battle match, for me, it was really centered around reconnecting with everybody. It was really centered around connecting with Marcelo, connecting with Jacob. I already knew Billy and I were good. And so connecting with Natalie, even Spencer, it was really centered around connecting with as many people as possible. So I'm not just like other past players or just the concept of, the revolving door that, typically happens with players. Exactly. So I really wanted to just figure out a way to not be a revolving door. And it really centered around just reconnecting with as many people as possible and figuring out who's working with who, more so centered around the end game. Who sees themselves with who, and how can I get involved in that? And so that was really my game plan going into coming back from the battle match.
Mm-hmm. And you came back and you had, as you said, you had like a target on your back, not just as a returning player, but as one of the biggest threats. Why do you think that everybody saw you as such a threat when like you pointed out, it's not like you had the most winning record, and it's not like you played the most, like Natalie played almost the same amount as you did. So why do you think that you were the threat?
I think it's really centered around I think it might be my voice. I think people didn't necessarily, I think I am able to articulate myself very well. And I think out of Final 2, not only me articulating myself, but also my social strength and my ability to really connect heart to heart with people, I think is really an important part in the Final 2. And I think basically my story as well. But it was interesting because I personally quite didn't see myself as that big threat, especially from the beginning. So it was really confusing for me to understand that because I actually haven't shared this. So what happened was a little backstory that actually hasn't been shared is that even though a lot of people predicted that I would be on, I actually wasn't going to be on. What happened was Audrey hit me up about so it was about 2 months before shooting was when things started to get figured out and planned. And when I got connected, that time didn't really work with me because I thought I'd be in Spain right now during shooting. And so I was not going to be on the show. It wasn't until 3 days before the start of shooting where Audrey gave me a call and said, hey, Basically something happened in behind the scenes where somebody had to couldn't go on. And so my schedule actually ended up working out. And that is when I got put on. However, that whole 3 days was me trying to figure out like my paralegal job. How can I like basically figure out, because typically you need like a 2-week notice. How can I get my job to let me do this? How can I figure out family life? How can I do this and this and that? And so those 3 days, I wasn't even thinking about any game. I was thinking about like, who's going to be on? None of that. That wasn't even on my mind. It was really about how can I get there? Now, after my flight and me getting into the car to go into the house is when I was like, oh shit, what's my game plan? Who's going to be on this show? What's going to happen? What am I going to do? That really is when I started to be like, game time. And so for me, in my head, I wasn't really, in my head, I didn't think that I was the biggest target because I didn't have that much to plan to prepare for myself like every other player did. And so getting into the game, I realized that, hey, nobody knows that. And so in my head, I was like, okay, I got to speed up really quick. I got to figure out like what my game plan is, what am I going to do, and how can I win this game? And so I think it hit me really when Spencer was coming for me. And that was when, and he gave the whole coronation speech, was when I realized, hey, look, everybody sees you as the biggest threat. What can I do to get to the end, even though I have this big target on my back, even though I quite haven't, I know Shireen said this in her exit interview, like nobody really did anything at that point. Like nobody had really any kind of resume. However, I was seen as the biggest threat. And so at that point, it was really me trying to figure out how can I get to the end with this big target on my back.
You talk about the coming in, you know, you focus on getting your trip, all that stuff. You get in, you said you have a plan. What was your plan? We talked about your plan after the battle match. What was your plan going in? You see it's all mini players. You know, you got some big names in there. What was your strategy of working with this cast of people?
It was so kind of like I said in my pre-interviews with you, Suzy, like I was really hoping that I didn't know much people.
Yeah, that was your greatest fear.
Oh, that was my greatest fear, because at that point, it was really centered around kind of like how I've been playing before. It's really centered around my social game, really connecting with everybody as much as I could, and grounding myself in that connection. And once that connection was formed, working closely, I really wanted to have at least one person who I can work strongly with, as well as like people who were bigger targets than me, and making sure that they were my shields and protecting them by all means necessary. But it was really centered around trying to be the middle person, not the target, but also not like the floater. It was really around centering that. But I also understand like one of my biggest strengths, and one of the things I really wanted to do in this game was be flexible, because at the end of the day, like the one thing you know about Sequester is there's no such thing as consistency. And so like I understood at some points I'd be up in the front and some points I'd be up in the back. It really was depending on the twist and being okay to really be flexible and be flexible as the twist and work around that. Now when I got into the house and I saw the people who were in it, I said, oh shit, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna navigate this, because I saw Jacob and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be my person. I know I can trust this person. This person is my actual real life friend outside this game, and so I know this person is gonna ride with me. But I also knew Marcelo and Jacob were really, really close. So it was really around centering myself around making sure that, hey, I want to be a trio with you two. I want to be close to Jacob and I want to be close to Marcelo, and I want to really see if this trio is going to be a thing. But I also knew at some point I was going to have to cut Marcelo so I could have Jacob to myself. And I also knew Marcelo would possibly cut me in order for him to have Jacob to himself. So it was really the question about when these moves were going to be made. But when I saw Billy, I knew, even though I've never talked to Billy before at all, before this game, like I knew of Billy. I also knew that Billy, it's funny, it wasn't shown, but right when I got to my first confessional, after meeting everybody, I said, look, Billy is my biggest threat in this game. Billy is the biggest threat in this game. And I knew that. And however, her magic, her glow, her pizzazz, it pulled me in too, girl. It pulled me in too, like it did everybody else. And that's why I knew this girl was the biggest threat in this game. And when I saw Natalie, I'm like, Natalie, Minnesota connection. Me and her actually met in real life before the game. And so I'm like, this girl won't cut me until like endgame, possibly. And I knew that's a connection I could form with Katie. fierce woman. I'm like, me and her are gonna connect. And so the only person I felt like, I don't know this person. I also don't know if I'm gonna connect to this person is Spencer. And one thing I learned in this game is it's really hard for me to fake like a connection. It's really hard for me to like fake a bond with an individual. And I mean, that really played a big effect throughout that first half of the game for me. But yeah, I'm going on a little tangent.
No, you're good.
No, it's all good. Speaking of Spencer, and kind of speaking of your flexibility too, what made you flip from targeting him to working with him?
Here's the thing, because I am somebody, I play with my heart. I know that's something about me, and that's something that I value and I love about me, even though it can be seen sometimes as a con. However, strategy and gameplay is something I also understand is a big part of this game. And in the first half, I understood why Spencer came for me. Like, to me, it made sense logically. However, in the second half, to me, it made sense for Spencer to actually work with me. And so for me, it was like, hey, Spencer, like, I had a beautiful, basically an argument why this person needed to work with me. It wasn't really centered around me being angry. It wasn't really centered about emotion at all. It was really centered around how can I get this target off my back, but also how can I get this individual to also work with me and make him see that he needs me in the Final Four. That was really a big part of me coming back. And I know in the game, it looked like Spencer was my initial target. And then you see like a little line in there where it says, I don't know if Spencer is the person I want to go. Well, the reality was that, like, Spencer, yes, it'd be okay if he left. Like, I'd be in a good spot if Spencer left, because he's been coming for me and I've been coming for him. However, I knew Brent was also working with Spencer. And that was when, I think it was the second round, where Brent asked me to basically not tell Spencer, hey, what he asked me? He asked me to not tell Spencer that he was the one. He asked Spencer. He asked me to put up Spencer into the what is it called?
Exile, yeah.
Yes. And so I did that. And to me, at that point, I didn't make the connection like why he wanted me to do that. I just made the connection like, hey, if I do this, I get safety. Period. I'm done. Let's do this. And so it wasn't until the next round when Jacob told me that Brent was like saying something about me to Spencer that wasn't good. I was like, hey, these two are working very closely together. And so coming back, if Spencer was to be in this game, I needed him to lose an ally so he could see me more as somebody he needed to work with. I needed Spencer. If Spencer was going to stay, I needed Spencer to only see me as a person that he needed to work with, or possibly can only really work with, because not really, I mean, everybody else voted him out as well. So at that point in the game, and so that's why I put Brent and Spencer together. It was really centered around, if Spencer goes, great, Brent is going to work with me. If Brent goes, I can make an argument for Spencer to want to work with me. And so that was really where it was centered. I mean, it's interesting because day night, I didn't think Spencer was with me. I didn't think that guy was with me. I really thought that he was probably saying some things, yada, yada, yada. But at that point, I was actually trying to make this for work. I was really trying to see, because I thought Spencer was somebody who, in the Final Four, I'd be good to have him in the Final Four. I mean, at that point, the jury was talking very badly about Spencer. And so I didn't see Spencer as somebody that would possibly be something that I would have to worry about in the Final Two. However, I did think that a lot of people did fear him in a way where they didn't want to go into Final Two with him. So I knew that there's a big chance that Spencer would get to Final Four if he continued to beat these challenges. Because at the end of the day, he's been winning every single one of these. And so I had to prepare myself to really see Spencer in the Final Four, and for him to want to work with me if that was the case. So.
Do you think getting that time with the jury helped your game? Like getting that time, knowing exactly what they were thinking and being able to use that and go to people like Spencer and be like, hey, like, I'm hearing this from the jury. Do you think that helped your game?
See, I was wondering if it made a bigger target.
Yeah, that's it helped or hurt. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. I really didn't bring up anything the jury said to the people, but also at the same time, like time-wise, and so the only people I really had time with in jury was Katie and Jay West. Shireen and Rachel literally came to jury, we walked out, and we did the battle match. So I really didn't have much time to talk to Shireen or Rachel. I had the night to talk to Jay West and Katie and to really talk and like connect and like reflect on the game. And so with that being said, Katie was for Spencer. Spencer knew that. Jay West was somebody who was Jay West is a very open-minded individual. You know, like he saw a little bit of everybody in who he was going to vote for. Like Jay West was somebody that I think a lot of people would want in a jury because he was very open in regards to who he was going to vote for. But I mean, I didn't really gain. We really talked about like the alliances and things like that. But in regards to me bringing information, I really didn't bring much to them. And I think also because I didn't want them to see like, hey, I didn't want to put to their face like Muna had a lot of time with the jury. Muna had a lot of time to see what they're thinking. Therefore, I cannot by all means necessary bring Muna to the Final Four. And so for me, I was really trying to not put it into their faces that this girl came back from the jury and had a lot of things in her favor. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking a little bit more of games, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tommy.
No, you're good. I was just saying, yeah. I didn't have anything yet. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I want to kind of switch to some of your more recent game moves. You talked a little bit about Natalie. I didn't realize y'all had met ahead of time. But, I mean, we knew that you had the Minneapolis connection. You made it very clear that, like, that was something that was important to you. She turned on you hardcore, right? But you really respected it as a move. Can you talk a little bit about what made you respect that kind of flip?
Well, here's the thing. I understood why Natalie came for me. It made sense. Like, the girl where I was on the totem pole and where she was on the totem pole was on completely different like spectrums. She needed to get me out in order to really have not just me, but at least like be at the forefront of some kind of move to really stay to the end of if she was to make it final two. I understood that. That made sense. I mean, at the end of the day, I understood Natalie most likely was not going to take me to the final two, like final four even. I understood Natalie was somebody who at some point was going to come for me. Now, did I expect it to be a final eight? Did I expect it to be a day night? Hell no. I was like, what? Natalie, no. Girl, at the end of the day, I understood where she was coming from. And I understood, like, at the end of the day, it's like, as a player, and I know y'all can also connect to this, for us who love these kind of games, it's so easy for me to, like, switch back and forth between a player and a viewer. And so, as a viewer, I was like, damn, Natalie, you go, girl, look at me. But then as a player, I was like, did you just come for me, girl? And it was constant back and forth, like, damn, so I really become Natalie. But at the end of the day, one thing that I did respect was, like, damn, not only did this girl come for me, but she got two other people who I had a strong connection with also be a part of this move. Therefore, I wasn't even thinking about Natalie. I was thinking about the betrayal of Jacob and Marcelo. And therefore, like, even when I found out that Natalie was a part of it, I had no, like, she was at the bottom of the list of people for me to come for. Like, at top, it was Jacob and it was Marcelo. And so, like, for that alone, as a viewer, I'm like, damn, what a game move. What a game move. Because if she was to just come for me by herself, I feel like I would have had more fuel and more anger towards her. But the fact that she had two other people who I was more connected to and had a stronger relationship with, I wasn't even thinking about her, even though she came at me. And I mean, I just gotta respect that. I really do gotta respect that. And if she is to make it to the final two, that's something that will. It's funny because I am somebody who, like, if you come for me, like, I will, like, even if I'm out and I'm on jury, I will do whatever I can to make sure that, you know, the karma comes around. But however, for Natalie, this is, I think, the first time I really was like, okay, like, I was really seeing it for her favor. And that's not something that I know for me is not something that is typical. And I know as an overall. So props to her. Props to her.
Do you think it had anything to do also with the way that Natalie presented, like, when you confronted her about it? Do you think that was part of the reason you respected it as well?
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. You know, one thing that not many people I feel like are really doing in this game is jury management. It really is jury management because literally everybody who is out is in jury. Like from the beginning, from round one, we all should be doing jury management. Every single one of us. And literally, when I was watching Day Night, I was literally, I was laughing because this girl, she literally, okay, me and her were the last date. She literally came to me and she said, Muna, you know, I've had a rough time, but this round is fun.
Fun for who? Fun for Natalie.
God, Natalie! That's savage.
But at the same time, like if you look at her conversation, this girl was really doing jury management to me before I even knew she was coming for me. Like props to her, like the fact that she was really, and when I came back, the same energy, she really was centered around, like just the way she talks and the way she comes for you is very like, just very warm-hearted and very much so like, it's just very kind. Like she really stuck a knife behind my back, but like gave me a hug afterwards. Like she is someone who like, I don't even know how to describe it, but like I think people underestimate her because of the way she like presents herself and comes to people. But at the end of the day, what I've realized throughout this game is that very thing is the very thing that is the killer. Like that's the very thing that is the threat in this game of her. And because at the same time as she's surviving, she's making these moves, but at the same time she is leaving the jury with her being this kind, sweetheart, innocent girl. And that is something at Final 2 I think will work in her favor if it's like sitting next to like a Spencer or for me a Jacob, right? And I think that like if that was the case, she would be having my vote. And so it's really interesting to see that aspect. And so yeah,
I think one thing that we mentioned is that like not only does she have your vote, but very importantly, she has your voice.
yeah.
And your voice is pretty immeasurable. You're they say that you're a huge threat because of your voice. Well, you're also a huge asset because of your voice. I mean, we can look to Winners at War 1 for that, for example. You gave us a lot of like information and details as to why we should vote for Jacob Jones to win Winners at War 1. And honestly, we were having so much trouble watching that game that your voice was really important in that deciding vote. Like, I still go back and forth on whether I should have voted for Puya. Sharifa still like sends me mean texts. So I mean, like to me, keeping you on your good side is such an asset for Natalie at this point in the game too. So it was really exciting to see that.
And I value that she knew that, because I think what was really frustrating to me in the game was like people were coming for me talking about, oh, Muna's a threat, we gotta get her out. She's a threat, we gotta get her out. But once I'm out, I'm in jury. And the same kind of threat of a voice that I have that you're scared of is the same energy that I have in jury. So I don't understand why it is certain people are coming at me the way that they were coming for me. And so it was interesting to see like certain players in this game who were conspiring against me, but were playing it in a way that would benefit them. It's interesting because like in jury, yes, I'm looking at my emotions, my feeling on how people did me wrong, but I'm also looking at the chess pieces of how they did it and how it benefited them in the end game. And so it's like, if it didn't benefit you in any way, shape, or form, and you just said, Muna's a threat, and the way you came for me didn't really make sense in the chess pieces, then why, like, to me, it didn't make any sense.
What I think is like an interesting point that you bring up is like, is the jury management, and also like something that we've asked some people is like learning that everyone made jury. Did that change your game? And it surprised me that some people didn't think about that, because in a regular game, right, you have the opportunity when there's a pre-jury, you have people that you're like, oh, if I don't want this person on a jury, I better make sure they go out here, because then they don't have that voice to talk about in the jury. So was that something that like you were thinking about, like, oh, these people are all, on the jury now. So it's like, you do have to almost like butter them up, but you can't let them know that you're buttering them up. There's like it's tricky to be that jury management.
I was doing jury management the moment I walked in. And a couple things I did was, so I knew Brent was somebody who was very influential. So I knew I needed him specifically to leave. If he was to leave on good terms with me, because I didn't want him. I knew the moment he get into jury, he'd use his voice and try to influence as many people as possible. I knew that. And so for me, it was one, I don't want Brent to leave early. And two, I wanted Brent to leave with me on his good side. And so like that also influenced how when I came back and I put both Brent and Spencer up, even though in a way they were both my targets. Even though I said specifically, Spencer, I'm coming for you, I said, Brent, look, I feel like you can be Spencer. I feel like I want to work with you, yada, yada, yada. I said all the things that I wanted to say, so Brent really felt like Muna wants to be with me. And I said that specifically knowing there is a chance that Brent would leave, but I wanted Brent to leave with good terms with me. And like, you know, one thing that we talked about before is me playing up front. However, really, the reason why I played really up front was in eliminations. And that's because the jury's there. And the jury only gets to see eliminations. And so I want to make sure if I got to the final two, nobody could say anything about my story, about whether I did this or that, because they've seen eliminations very straightforward and everything I've said very clear. And so what I wanted to do was at every elimination, I wanted them to see the things and the moves that I was making. And I wanted to add spice. I wanted to add butter. I wanted to add everything good so that they'd be like, Muna's winning, period. And so I was really trying to tell my story every elimination as possible. So when I got to final two, they knew basically my game. They knew what I did, this and that. And I already knew I was a big threat, so I had nothing really to lose by doing that as a show. Because like there's people like Jay West who's only there for one round. So Jay West is only seeing what he's seen at eliminations. Katie is only seeing what they've seen at eliminations. And so like for me to really get their vote, I wanted them to see Muna is making moves, and that was really a big part of it. But also like looking at those who were big voices in the game and being very strategic of how they left with me. Because I knew those who had big voices in the game also had big voices in jury. And so I wanted to make sure that they left with me full in their hearts. But yeah.
I think that's really one of the hardest parts is that jury only sees like what's at the elimination. So watching back the episode, something we've been interested to hear is what has surprised you, like that you hadn't seen, you know, when you were playing or when you were in jury. What has surprised you, like either in the confessionals or maybe something from a challenge that you hadn't seen that moment before or realized?
I think, honestly, the biggest thing that surprised me was Jacob's game. I think, honestly, the only big thing that really shook me in this game was Jacob and was the game he was playing. I really didn't see. So, like, a lot of it was shown is gameplay, strategy, is all that good stuff. But a lot of parts that are not seen are really the emotional aspects in this game. Like literally, so I don't really have much time to prepare for this game. So for me, one thing I really underestimated is the emotional toll, the physical toll that this game would have on me. And it was really hard to understand because in my head, I mean, like the way the game is shown like, I mean, the way that the show is shown, it's seen as, you know, me and Jacob had this friendship and it's strong and yada, yada, yada. And then there's this big betrayal. However, for me, it wasn't necessarily the friendship that was at the core. It was the sense of strategy. In my head, okay, I realized, okay, I'm at the front. I'm at the top of this list now. Jacob is second. And in my head is Jacob is really the only person in this game who has like a 2-in-1 deal. He has me that is like a shield for him, but then 2 is like this loyal person who is also the only person who's shown that sense of loyalty in a past mini game in this whole cast. And so for me, when Jacob was part of that date night group to get me out, in my head it's like this just doesn't make any kind of sense to me strategically. game-wise. It doesn't make any sense why. It makes sense for Natalie to come for me. It makes sense for Marcelo to come for me. But it makes sense for Jacob to come for me when I was the only shield he had in this game. And so for me, the only way I could take it was emotionally. Like, the only thing that made sense to me was that this was an emotional move where he just didn't want me to get to the end for some reason that I just couldn't understand at all. And that really had like this big toll on me. And then watching it, trying to understand the game he was playing, I don't know. It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting because it's a game he's never played before. It's a game that, you know, his past mini games have never been that. And it was quite interesting because I know, Suzi, you brought it up where, you know, because me and him were allies and because I always ride for my people was why I advocated for him in the final 2. And so for me, it also didn't make sense. Like, if you were to betray me, I would use that same voice to make sure that you didn't win. And so, like, to me, it just didn't make sense. And I'm watching it back and I'm trying to understand. And I mean, he's playing a game and I still don't understand it. And hopefully it will make more sense in this end game, this finale we have going on. But no, I just didn't understand it, and it affected me emotionally, and it affected me. And it's so crazy because it's like each episode is like a new episode. It's like a fresh new start. But these challenges, these twists are like back to back to back, and it's like we're in final 6, but I'm still stuck on final 8, and I'm still stuck on like all these different things. And it's all about trying to be in this moment, be on this twist, but I'm still trying to untangle past events that happened and like process the emotions all at the same time. It's just a crazy, crazy game. But yeah, watching his game was a big shock to me. It was the biggest shock to me this whole entire game.
Well, we get a week to process it. In the game, you have maybe like a couple of minutes to process all this going on.
It's crazy. It's so crazy, and I think it's even more crazy watching other players and seeing them process it really, really fast, or not process it really, really fast, and then trying to navigate it as well. Because at that point, you're really centered around yourself, and you're really centered around, okay, A, B, C, D, and it's just so fast, and it's just so crazy. I truly have a whole different perspective of like the previous 5 games because of that. Like, I have a whole new idea of these last 3 seasons because of what I went through with season 4. It's crazy.
Yeah.
A new appreciation.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of processing, you took a moment during the final twist that you played in you were like, listen, I'm not going to be safe. Let me see what I can learn about relationships. What do you feel like you learned, and how were you thinking you could bring that forward?
Girl, I learned I can't trust nobody but Billy. Okay, that's what I learned. But it was quite interesting because in a lot of different ways, I kind of wish I didn't see what I saw, because it really affected how I navigated that twist. Because, you know, initially I was really hoping and trying to navigate and create this final 4 between me, Spencer, Billy, and Josh or Natalie, one of those 2. And I was trying to figure out, and like I was really doing the work to try to pull these people in. I was just trying to in my head, I'm like, okay, final 6, I'm gonna try to pull Josh into this final 4. I got Spencer secured, I got Billy secured. I just need to get Josh or Natalie to see me as somebody who they need a final 4, and I was gonna pitch like, you need a bigger threat. I was gonna pitch. I had everything I was gonna do set at final 7. Now I get to final 6. And I say, hey, I'm going to learn and figure out how I can get to final 4. Let me get the information. Let me gain as much information so I can like argue my way into final 4 and bring people into seeing that they need me. And what ended up happening is Jacob comes back. And I was really hoping Marcelo came back because I truly believed that Marcelo would be the person that would be open to work with me. And I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people were centered around, oh, Muna is like, Muna's angry at me. Muna's da-da-da. But really, it was really centered around who is going to talk to me, say, Muna, I want to work with you, da-da-da, like, let's do this, then let's go. Like, I don't care what happened the previous round, but you tell me you really want to work with me, I'm down. However, Jacob didn't talk to me at all. After final 8s. And so for me, it was like, okay, Marcelo's the only one to talk to me, so I need Marcelo to come back. Jacob comes back, and I'm still like affected by Final 8. And so I see Final 6 and I see Jacob and Spencer working very closely together, pouring their cups back and forth. And also, I was kind of shocked just by that twist, because in my head, I'm like, okay, everybody's gonna like slowly try to pour a little bit in. We're gonna walk. We're gonna like try to navigate this, because at the end of the day, you're saving somebody else. You're not saving yourself. And so I was shocked that people were running to save other people. And I was just like, what's going on here? Because
you were like, y'all are not gaming this.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not safe, girl. Why are you running? But I saw Jacob.
Some people thrive during the chaos. We saw that utilize that chaos very well.
But I saw Jacob and Spencer working very closely together. I saw Spencer pouring into Jacob's cup, and I'm like, okay, so Spencer is not really with me. And then I see Natalie, and I see Natalie pouring into also Jacob and Spencer's cup. So I'm like, okay, this is a 3 right here. And so this is a 3 that don't see me in it if Jacob is in there. And so I'm like, okay, I guess Spencer is not really with this plan. I see Josh, and I'm surprised Josh's cup is the first one full. I'm like, I don't feel like Josh was working with anybody in this game. Like, how did his cup get full? Like, I was just very confused by the people that were pouring into these different cups, and I was seeing these relationships, and I was seeing these alliances of these different people that I didn't really see before. Because at the end of the day, it's like, if you're saving somebody, that means that somebody is somebody you were working with. Period. Like, if you're generally working that hard to save them, that's someone you see as somebody you really want to work closely with. And so at that point, I'm like, I can't trust anybody but Billy. And so going into the actual game, where it was like me, Jacob, and Natalie, the only person I felt like I could really even talk to was Billy. And I think because at that point, I was just over the lies. I was over like all the different things. I'm like, I have this LOS. I'm going to play this LOS regardless, because these people are coming for me and they're going to vote me out. And so it was really about, how can I get these people to not choose me as a battle match. Now, if I didn't see that twist, if I didn't watch the whole thing happen, I would have been working to make sure that I wasn't the vote and then use it for a battle match. But because of what I saw in that twist, I was like, I don't trust any of these people. I don't want to talk to nobody. Like, y'all can go. I was really like centered around like, what everybody told me is not true, because only Billy was actually trying to save me. And I felt like if Spencer was really trying to work with me here, he would have at least filled a little bit of my cup. And so because
that was my next question, is like, what was your strategy behind not flipping people, but instead having your allies vote for you? But
it was interesting, because I truly believed that that Natalie really believed my beloved. And I truly believe that Natalie was the person right now in this game, right, after coming for me, after doing all these things, that she wouldn't really, I think she would have put Jacob up for a battle match. And I think more so because I think, I don't know, I just felt like she wouldn't want me to have another thing on my resume. And at the same time, I think it would have been a big move for her to pick Jacob. And so I voted for Natalie there. And props to her and Josh for making that other plan to get Jacob out. But yeah.
That's so funny, because we did hear Natalie being like, use your advantage, go ahead and use it, like when you got called up there with Jacob. So she was prepared to go in. Yeah, I think you're right. And Spencer was also, there's something about Spencer, right? Like, he really does believe just like shit like that too. He was like, what? People are lying in this game? Like,
it's funny because
I don't know if you remember Derek from BB Can 6, but he gives me like those vibes where you're like, yes, everyone is lying in this game.
or like Fessy, like, who flipped? Like a who flipped.
Yeah. It's funny because like as I watched it back, so Spencer's I relationship is a very interesting one. Like I said before, it's really hard for me to fake relationships, and Spencer was just an awkward. I just couldn't put my hand to it. Like every time we were in a space, it just didn't feel good. It just did not feel good. And it was just really hard. I'm just gonna say it very straightforward. His social game was just not there. It was just not there. and it just was not working. And
there's a certain point when he realizes it, and like the last 5 episodes, every time he leaves a room, he sighs and says "fuck." Right? He's like, like, you know.
And I think it was just so bad that I just couldn't even like. I was kind of trying, but it just was not working. And but slowly and eventually, like after I came back and after we had conversations, like Spencer and our relationship, like he was slowly growing on me. And so for him, I can see why he believed it. And so yeah. And I think he was voting for me regardless too. But which is interesting because I truly believed he was really down for that Final Four. But who knows? I think at that point he was just trying to survive.
Yeah, I honestly think he was, but I think that Jacob was able to. Anyway, that's my own analysis, right? That's really less about your game. But I think that, you know, we saw a lot of evolution and a lot of like discussion of you as a player and as a person. And I think that, you know, you made it very clear that you had priorities in this game and winning was not your number one priority. You discussed a lot about representing not just yourself, but others well. Do you feel like you did accomplish what you came to Sequester to do?
Yeah, here's the thing. You know, one thing I've learned with my experience in the mini community, as well as just the community in itself and the game and all that different stuff, is winning is great. But winning with a story you're proud of, a story that you hold, even if you lost, you are proud of. It's something that is as important as winning. And as a mini winner, as also a mini loser, I knew like coming into this game, what was important to me was my story and the game that I played and being proud of it, regardless if I won or I lost or wherever place I was, even if that was first boot or final 2. I wanted to make sure that my voice was heard. I wanted to make sure that, you know, I was seen and that there was space for me to really showcase that we are here, that we are players, that we are game players. We may not be perfect, but we are growing. I mean, we may not be perfect, but we are as capable and human and as badass as any other person can be. And so for me, it was really centered around this doing the thing and doing it as hard as I can. And like one thing I have not done in like the mini community, like I said before, is like my game is really centered around social game and really navigating around that and like my connection with people and all that different things. But from the beginning, I've had to fight. I had to fight from the very beginning because of this target on my back. And I knew it was a challenge for me to get to that final 2. It was a challenge for me to get there. But I knew like fighting was the thing I was going to do from the very beginning. And regardless of where I placed, I did it and I fought, and that is the main thing. And, you know, this is a game that I love, and, you know, representation is the core of it all. And so, yeah.
I think that, you know, I think we've covered everything. Do you have any last questions, Tommy?
No, and I just like what you're saying right there. I mean, I think there was 2 different Munas we saw of like the matching battle matches. Like there was still the hunger there because it's like you got cut before you got picked for a battle match, you got cut. But the Muna that we saw go out here, it was that like almost that peace. Like this is my story, and this is what it is, and it's inspiring to watch for me, you know, just to see it, and I appreciate you, Muna.
Thank you, Tommy. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you know what we haven't talked about at all before we wrap up? Speaking of representation, one of my favorite things of season 4, and I've been like, I don't care if people call me biased, I don't care what they have to say, something that like I caught episode 1 and has been super exciting for me to watch is a exciting alliance of women of color, you know, and a lot of queer women of color, and you know, so the season 4, you talked a little bit about, you know, who you knew, who you didn't know coming in, who you felt like you could work with. Can you talk a little bit about season 4 and your experiences as one of the members?
season 4. Okay, girl.
The
So
4.
thank you for bringing that up, Susie, because that is something that is, like I said, the story is to me just as important as winning. And being a part of that alliance is something that literally, to me, is my favorite part of being there. Like, that is my favorite part of getting to be a part of that experience and part of that story and a part of this alliance, because this is an alliance that is beautiful, something that we do not get to see. And like, I didn't know really any of them, none of them. The only person I knew in this game was Jacob. Jacob was the only like real friend that I had outside of this game. And I remember I saw Rachel and I was just like, this is my girl. Like, this is my girl. Rachel was the first person I went into I came into the house with. And I remember there's so many scenes that y'all didn't get to see where, like, the day 0, me and Rachel were out there in a different room, the library room, scheming. We were making plans. We were talking about like all these different things. And I was just like, Rachel is going to be my person. And then I saw Shireen and I was like, girl, we did the whole like, you know, like that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
And I knew from there, I was like, yes. So Shireen and I, like, I knew of Shireen, and like Shireen, like there was like maybe one Zoom call, but it was like a group Zoom call. Like, me and her haven't really talked one-on-one at all before. And so like just getting to talk to her, I was just like, yes, like it's that you just feel it. And I think in that house, a big part of it is intuition. Like, a huge part of that game is intuition. Like, you see where Spencer's about to pull me into a battle match, and then I called Jacob. I didn't know Jacob was out here saying my name, but what I did know was I had a feeling. I had a feeling that there was something that just wasn't right, and I went with it. And watching back, I was just like, oh my God! Like, there's just so many parts in the show. And me watching back, I was like, my intuition was correct. And like, in a game that's just so quick, intuition is a big part of it. And I don't think that's really talked about a lot in this game. But going back, I knew I just felt it. Now with Billy, when I saw Billy, y'all, when I saw her, and like my day 0, and when you get to meet everybody, and it's just a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of like, am I making the right first impression? Am I doing this correctly? But when I saw Billy, like, I felt like I can breathe. I felt like I just felt at peace. And the funny part is, me and Billy has never talked. Me and this girl have never talked. And I just felt like this was also going to be my person. So when we all came together and we all came into that bathroom room in one of the corner rooms, and we just started talking, and like, it just made my heart so happy to see, like, hey, this can be an alliance. Not only can this be an alliance, this can be a power alliance, and I get to be a part of this. I get to be a part of this story and this beautiful alliance that we don't get to see at all in these kind of games. And the fact that I got to be a part of that truly is the most heartwarming part of this experience for me. And coming back into the game, not just come back. When I was in jury and I saw both Shireen and Rachel come back, literally my heart dropped to the floor. Like, my heart dropped to the floor, because those were the 2 people that I did not want to come back. And literally right when those 2 came back, we're like, Billy, and like, we're basically trying to figure out. I thought we were just scheming that, like, hey, whoever comes back, whatever, we're gonna make sure we're doing the work to get Billy that win. Like, that was our like mindset in jury. And like, but when I came back and I got to see Billy, and I was like, me and her, we're gonna do this thing. And the thing for me is, I've never been just an individualistic individual. Like, for me, I've grown up in a Somali culture where I grew up in a collective community. Like, for me, it's all about community, and it's all about togetherness. And in a game like this, yes, at some point you gotta care about yourself. You gotta figure out how you can get yourself to the end. But at the end of the day, what I love about this game is, with it being a social game, community is what you need in order to get to the end. And community is what's going to get you that win. And for Billy, it was really not really just the 4. For me, it's like, if any of us win, like, if I don't win, and if any of us win, I still win. And it was just beautiful to have that experience, to have that, like, heartfelt moment where it's like, yes, if I don't win this, and if I get out, whatever, like I don't truly lose, because I got this beautiful alliance, this beautiful relationship I built with these 3 beautiful women, beautiful, strong, resilient women. That's just so powerful and beautiful, and like I grew so much just by that short time of being with them and getting to talk to them. That really is gonna be with me for the rest of my life. So yeah.
I'm so glad that you had that experience. Well, I think that's it for us. I'm going to go ahead and I think sign off, but thank you so much, Muna, for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was a beautiful experience to be a part of. It was not something that I really expected. I don't really see. It was interesting because for my whole life, I've really seen myself looking at the screen and seeing people who don't look like me, but really rooting for them and like getting the experience of falling in love with the social strategy games that I love, and then to get to see myself was an experience that I never really thought or imagined. And getting to see all other people, minority, also dream big and get to see themselves on the camera and the screen, it was just beautiful. And so thank you, Suzi and Tommy, for having me. It was beautiful to reflect with y'all. Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll play the music. Do, 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 do.